Samir had never been good at following directions, and that weakness had finally caught up with him in spectacular fashion. He had assumed that boarding a sleek interstellar shuttle labeled Colony Transit Sector 7 would be a straightforward process. In reality, it had been more like stepping into a magician's hat with a side of mild chaos. The cabin lights flickered in patterns that seemed almost sentient. The seats hummed faintly as if complaining about his weight, and a soft, melodic chatter filled the air. He figured it was just the ambient welcome message. He was wrong. The first sign that something was off came when the door slid shut behind him, and he realized no one else in the cabin looked remotely human. Not because they were green or covered in scales or tentacles, those he could handle, but because they were all women, all of them, and their ears were impossibly long, tapering to delicate points that twitched and curled with every emotion, a language Samir had no hope of deciphering. One of them, a tall figure with ears coiling like fine glass sculptures, raised an eyebrow, or the alien equivalent thereof, and gave him a look that made his stomach tighten with embarrassment. He coughed, nervously muttering, hi." Before he could explain himself, the ship lurched sideways, and Samir grabbed the nearest console for balance. His fingers slammed across buttons that did things he did not understand. Lights flashed, the hum of engines shifted pitch, and suddenly the cabin's floor tilted, sending him sliding like a clumsy skier into what he assumed was a lounge area. A pair of the alien women exchanged amused glances, their ears curling rhythmically as if laughing, though no sound came from their lips. He hit the floor with a muffled thump, quickly realizing that the gravity controls had somehow been engaged by his accidental button mashing. Sorry. He scrambled upright, only to trip over a loose cable that winked at him like it had a mind of its own. The alien seemed entirely unbothered, watching with expressions that combined curiosity, amusement, and the faintest trace of indulgence. One of them floated toward him gracefully, moving as if weightless, though he knew she was. You're human," she said, her voice melodic like a song trying not to laugh. "Yes, totally human," he said, holding his hands up as if proving it could somehow help. "I just, took a wrong turn somewhere." The melodic woman tilted her head, ears twitching in ways that almost looked like punctuation, and gave a sound that was neither laughter nor speech but something in between. Samir had a vague impression it meant, "Oh dear." The chaos continued. He tried to find a seat and somehow ended up activating a zero-gravity cleaning sequence. Foam burst from hidden panels, bouncing around the cabin in slow motion. Samir found himself floating, entangled in what he soon realized were polite maintenance tendrils, designed to polish surfaces but now wrapping around his arms and legs like playful snakes. One alien lyra let out a melodic trill that Samir could only interpret as, "Oh, this is going to be fun," before deftly guiding the tendrils away from his body with a flick of her wrist. Her ears spiraled like liquid silver, and he found himself distracted for far too long, trying to figure out whether he was more terrified or enchanted. I just want to leave," he said, trying to sound firm. This was a mistake, big mistake, huge mistake. They didn't seem to understand, or perhaps they understood perfectly. Their expressions softened, and they began what he soon recognized as the first stage of alien persuasion. Curiosity mixed with playful interference. One handed him a strange device shaped like a cube, which when opened projected a holographic star map. That's nice," he said, pressing buttons at random, accidentally redirecting the ship's course by several light years. The aliens exchanged another glance, ears quivering in silent laughter. The next several hours were a blur of minor catastrophes and inadvertent heroism. Samir accidentally stabilized a failing energy core while attempting to brew some kind of alien coffee, narrowly avoiding a meltdown. He tripped over a console that caused the ship's AI to initiate a celebratory illumination sequence, bathing the cabin in prismatic colors. He had a minor confrontation with a robotic assistant that refused to acknowledge his authority, culminating in an accidental serenade that somehow charmed it into compliance. Through it all, the aliens watched with amusement, occasionally offering helpful hints or simply laughing silently with the twitch of their ears. By the time the ship settled into a steady trajectory, Samir sat on the floor, exhausted, covered in foam, tangled wires, and residual alien coffee. Lyra floated over, her ears spiraling with gentle amusement, and extended a hand. "You're staying," she said, a statement, not a question, her voice tinged with humor that seemed to fill the cabin. "I guess I am," he admitted, rubbing his bruised elbow. "But it's a mistake, definitely a mistake." Lyra's ears twitched, and she produced a small device that, with a flick, untangled him from the maintenance tendrils. "Sometimes mistakes are more interesting than plans," she said, and Samir could only stare, half bewildered, half curious, as the ship hummed along the stars, carrying him deeper into an absurd, alien, and unexpectedly charming adventure. As the cabin lights flickered in rhythmic patterns, Samir realized that leaving wasn't just impossible. It was the last thing he wanted. And somewhere between the zero-gravity coffee fiasco, the sentient prankster AI, and the mysterious humor of ears that spoke louder than words, he felt, for the first time in his life, that maybe, just maybe, he had stumbled into the wrong place and found exactly where he belonged. Samir woke to the gentle hum of the ship's engines vibrating through the floor, or maybe it was his own nerves. He blinked at the soft, ambient light that shifted color in a slow, deliberate rhythm, and realized he had somehow fallen asleep in a hammock that floated midair, secured by magnetic fields. He kicked lightly to get down, and ended up sliding across the cabin floor with a speed that would have thrilled a human roller coaster enthusiast, but left him dizzy and nauseous. Lyra appeared in the doorway, ears spiraling like liquid ribbons, a faint trill escaping her lips that Samir decided must be laughter. "Good morning," she said, though it sounded more like a question mixed with a melody. "Ready to learn today's tasks?" "Tasks?" Samir echoed, already feeling the weight of whatever absurdity awaited him. "I thought surviving yesterday was enough." Lyra's ears twitched, sending ripples along the delicate curves. "Surviving is only the first stage." She gestured toward a floating holographic panel. "Integration, efficiency, cultural understanding, and coffee-making species-specific." Samir's stomach sank. Cultural coffee-making. Lyra grinned, or he thought she did. Her expression was so human-like he could barely tell. "You'll see, follow me." The next hour was chaos tempered with amusement. Samir attempted to navigate the shifting corridors of the ship, which seemed to rearrange themselves according to some mysterious AI logic. He took several wrong turns, walked into a wall that vanished only after he knocked, and almost accidentally initiated a self-cleaning cycle that enveloped him in a cloud of sparkling bioluminescent dust. Every mistake was met with a mixture of alien giggles and ear twitches, subtle enough to almost fool him into thinking he was hallucinating. Eventually, he arrived at the communal chamber, where the crew practiced a daily ritual that combined physical agility, telepathic coordination, and what Samir quickly recognized as competitive mischief. He was handed a device resembling a small, glowing orb and instructed to toss it in sync with the crew. He flung it clumsily, causing the orb to bounce erratically across the room, hitting a panel that initiated a holographic display of a miniature supernova. The crew's ears curled in delight, their melodic laughter harmonizing with the visual spectacle. Samir wanted to apologize, but he was laughing too hard to manage words. Lyra floated beside him, ears spiraling gracefully. "You adapt faster than expected," she said, though her tone suggested amusement more than praise, though not in the intended manner. Samir shook his head, tangled in floating panels and cables again. "I'm trying," he admitted, a little breathless. "This is like doing ballet in zero gravity while juggling explosives." The next challenge was food preparation. Samir was handed a tray of alien ingredients that wiggled slightly on their own. "You will make the morning meal," Lyra instructed. "Pay attention to their emotional resonance. They respond to mood." He stared at the ingredients as one squirmed toward him like it had a mind of its own. "Mood," he exclaimed. "You mean I have to talk to it?" "Yes," Lyra replied, ears curling in a slow, dramatic arc. "Encourage it. Compliment it, do not insult. The consequences are messy." Samir muttered under his breath, "I should have taken up accounting instead." He tried smiling kindly at the ingredients. One of them wiggled in what seemed like approval. Another suddenly erupted in a puff of neon mist, coating him in sticky glitter. The crew's ears quivered, melodic laughter filling the chamber. Samir groaned, but couldn't help laughing along with them. After surviving the culinary ordeal, he moved to assist with ship maintenance. A panel had malfunctioned, and the crew expected him to repair it. He approached cautiously, remembering the previous day's disasters. Somehow, his accidental twist of a wrench rerouted the ship's energy flow through the auxiliary engines. The ship hummed with newfound efficiency. Lyra floated nearby, ears spiraling slowly, an almost imperceptible trill escaping her lips. "Ingenious unintentionally," she said. Hours passed in a blend of work, chaos, and laughter. Samir learned the crew's routines, slowly understanding the language of their ears. Twitches, curls, and spirals conveyed everything from amusement to approval to gentle chiding. He discovered that the ship's AI enjoyed pranks, subtly altering floor panels or activating holographic distractions. Samir's previous fear of breaking something morphed into an appreciation for its unpredictable, playful logic. The day ended with an unexpected exercise, a zero-gravity relay that required coordination and teamwork. Samir's initial panic was evident, as he launched himself with too much force and spun uncontrollably into the ceiling. Lyra intercepted him midair, ears curling like decorative coils, laughing softly as she corrected his trajectory. Together, they completed the exercise, Samir feeling for the first time that he was part of something larger than himself. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Samir floated beside Lyra, staring at a nebula blooming across the viewport. "You really do all this every day?" he asked. "Every day and every night," Lyra replied, her ears twitching gently. "But you learn quickly, human. You're amusing. Annoying, yes, but amusing. Necessary, even." Samir smiled, the tension of the first day melting. "Necessary?" he asked. "I'm just a guy who got on the wrong ship." Lyra's ears spiraled slowly. Wrong ship, maybe. Wrong life, perhaps not. She floated away, leaving Samir to stare at the stars. Somewhere between the laughter, the chaos, and the absurdities of alien life, he realized he had begun to belong. And for the first time, he wondered if leaving would even be possible. The ship hummed, alive with its crew's quirks and his own growing place among them. Somewhere in the distance, a small alien drone zipped past, tripping on its own curiosity, and Samir laughed, realizing that surviving here wasn't about perfection. It was about embracing the chaos. And he was slowly learning to do just that. The alarm started as a soft trill, almost polite, like the ship was trying not to wake anyone, but Samir's ears, or rather, his human equivalent, twitched at once. He bolted upright from the observation deck, nearly colliding with Lyra, whose ears spiraled in rapid, expressive arcs. "We have a situation," she said, voice melodic yet tinged with tension. Samir followed her gaze to the viewport. A dense swarm of rogue space drifters, amorphous creatures that shimmered like liquid metal, were drifting toward the ship, capable of reconfiguring matter with the faintest touch. They moved with strange, chaotic intelligence, and the crew's usual composed amusement had vanished, replaced by urgent coordination. What exactly do they do?" Samir asked, his hands hovering nervously over a console. "They interact destructively," Lyra said, ears twitching in short, sharp bursts. "You'll need to help somehow." "Somehow?" Samir repeated, recalling every calamity and small victory of the past 2 days. somehow had become his specialty. The ship lurched as a drifter brushed against the hull, leaving behind a cascade of glowing particles that dissolved matter in its path. Samuel froze, then instinctively pressed buttons at random, as he had before. Panels slid open, levers moved, and by accident, he initiated a holographic projection of a nebula that mimicked the swarm's movements. The drifters paused, intrigued by the imitation, giving the crew a moment to adjust the ship's energy flows. Lyra's ears curled in delight. "You, humans are unpredictable," she said. With Samir's unintended guidance, the crew synchronized a countermeasure, a controlled energy pulse combined with playful holographic distractions. Samir was assigned to coordinate the pulse, a job that involved spinning 3 controls simultaneously while reciting a nonsensical chant that somehow resonated with the AI. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, trying not to slip on a floor panel that had decided to tilt again. Ridiculous but working. It did work. The swarm slowed, then reorganized itself around the holographic nebula, essentially pacified by Samir's chaotic improvisation. The crew cheered, their ears spiraling in unison, laughter and trills echoing through the cabin. Samir, flushed and panting, realized that for the first time his mistakes had become assets. After the swarm dispersed, the crew gathered in the main chamber, all eyes or ears on him. Lyra floated beside him, ears curling in a slow, proud rhythm. "You've changed, human," she said softly. "You no longer stumble, or perhaps you stumble in a way that benefits everyone." I guess I'm used to stumbling now," Samir admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "But it's different, better." The AI chimed in, a melodic harmony of voices. Human integration status complete, humor level acceptable, emotional resonance high. Samir blinked, half amused, half stunned. He had become part of this ship's ecosystem, not as a passenger or observer, but as an active participant whose unpredictable human nature had real value. Later, in a quieter moment, Samir and Lyra floated side by side in zero gravity, staring at a star cluster blooming across the viewport. "So I could leave," he said, testing the waters, "but I don't really want to." Lyra's ears spiraled softly, a tender rhythm that conveyed something words could not. "You belong here," she said. "Though you might still be inconvenient at times, you belong." A small robotic assistant zipped past, buzzing happily, and Samir laughed, realizing he would miss these tiny absurdities. The floating coffee ingredients, the teasing holographic simulations, the ear twitches that spoke volumes. "Inconvenient, yes. Belonging, also yes," he said aloud. The day continued with a routine that had become familiar yet never predictable. Samir assisted in navigational adjustments, prepared a meal that responded to his mood, and even joined the crew in a celebratory zero-gravity dance that had begun as a joke but ended in genuine laughter. Each moment reminded him that chaos could be charming, mistakes could be heroic, and belonging was something crafted in shared absurdities, not simply given. When the ship finally slipped into a quiet trajectory, far from the danger of the swarm and en route to destinations unknown, Samir floated to the observation deck alone for a moment. He watched the stars stretch past, brilliant and indifferent, and realized that he no longer feared the unknown. The galaxy was vast, strange, and sometimes terrifying, but it was also full of laughter, companionship, and lessons learned in the most unexpected ways. Lyra joined him, ears curling in a gentle, comforting spiral. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" she asked. "I think I am," Samir said, smiling. "Though knowing this ship, tomorrow will probably be something else entirely." She trilled softly, and together they watched the stars. Samir had boarded the wrong ship by accident, but he had found his place among beings who were alien, challenging, and endlessly amusing. In the quiet glow of distant suns, he realized that home wasn't a planet, a colony, or a familiar schedule. It was the people who made even chaos feel like belonging. And for the first time, Samir was entirely, irrevocably, and contentedly in the right place.